Actors disappear from our screens in different ways. Sometimes it's a slow process as their star fades, picking increasingly obscure projects by choice until they finally declare it's over. But other times it's far more sudden.
Bye, Miss Laura.
Sometimes it only takes a single movie, a single bad decision, a single suicidal choice. I'm Adam from Whatculture.com, and here are 10 actors whose careers were destroyed by just one movie. Number 10, Sean Connery, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He may have started late, but Sean Connery's played some of the most defining roles in cinematic history. Have you heard of a character called James Bond? However, rather than following in the footsteps of fellow octogenarian Clint Eastwood, he's been notably absent from our cinematic screens recently. You've got The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen to thank for that, an ambitious Alan Moore adaptation that Alan Moore hated and everyone hated, that sank with critics and barely scraped a profit. Connery chose that instead of playing Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. It proved to be the straw that broke the camel's back, and in 2005 he announced his retirement, disillusioned by those in power. Number 9, Mike Myers, The Love Guru. Wayne's World, Austin Powers, Shrek. There was a time that Mike Myers was the benchmark for cinematic comedy excellence without many absolute stinkers to his name. You know, apart from garbage like The Cat in the Hat. That wasn't the killer blow though, it was with the despicable The Love Guru that he really fell from grace. Aside from a cameo in Inglourious Basterds, Myers has done precious little since that, and even the Shrek work seems to have mostly dried up. Number 8, Chris O'Donnell, Batman and Robin. Chris O'Donnell used to be a hot young thing. He already had a Golden Globe nomination to his name before he took on the role of Dick Grayson in Batman Forever, and after that prequel's impressive box office haul, he looked ready to reach the big leagues. Sadly, Batman and Robin happened, and that was pretty much the end of that. Most of the cast emerged with their reputations smudged, but O'Donnell suffered most of all. A few years later, he ventured back into the spotlight for Vertical Limit, and then he disappeared from movies for good. While he found redemption on TV, his film work is now pretty much non-existent. Number 7, Brandon Routh, Superman Returns. Like Henry Cavill, Brandon Routh looked like the ideal Superman. I mean, he actually looked like Christopher Reeve. It was scary. All chiseled features and rippling muscles. Unfortunately, the fanboys didn't agree that Superman Returns was good, declaring it boring and a misstep for all involved, and it tanked at the box office. Kevin Spacey survived intact, that charismatic son of a gun. Sadly for Routh, he was the scapegoat used whenever the film's quality came up. Since then, he's done very little, in film terms at least, and like Christopher Reeve and George Reeves, you could see him as a victim of the so-called curse of Superman, if one of the more fortunately healthy ones. Number 6, Kevin Costner, Waterworld. Kevin Costner has regained some of his cinematic standing with his appearance in Man of Steel and a run of Jerry action flicks, but he's still nowhere near the height he was put out with Dances with Wolves. You could argue that a series of bad films brought him to this point, but there's one film that started it off, the much-hated Waterworld. Although it's only just made its money back in DVD sales, it bombed heavily at the time, taking Costner's star rating to the bottom of the ocean, and he's never really been the same since. He's certainly not anywhere near the A-list anyway. Look at those gills. Look at those stupid gills. Number 5, Demi Moore, Striptease. Proof, if proof be needed, that boobs can kill. Striptease is the original hooker with the heart of god-awful movie. Murder, politics, and Demi Moore doing sort of sexy dances ensured that teenage boys embraced the film, but it was savaged by the critics. It holds a solid 12% on Rotten Tomatoes, and much of the abuse was directed at Moore herself. She fell out of the Hollywood mainstream and never really regained her golden position that she once held after Ghost. Number 4, Halle Berry, Catwoman. Halle Berry won a goddamn Oscar for Monsters Ball, so studio bigwigs seemed confident enough in her to cast her in Batman spin-off Catwoman. Smash cut to that being one of the most heinous decisions in cinematic history, as Berry attempted to make up for what she lacked in seduction with literally acting like a cat. Her well-earned reward was a Razzie for Worst Actress, which, to be fair to her, she actually accepted in person, a ruined profile, and a new has-been label that she's still not been able to shake. Number 3, Elizabeth Berkley, Showgirls. Oh, Showgirls, one of the naughty VHSs circulated by boys at school, a generation of grubby little lads dragged kicking and screaming and something else-ing into puberty at the sight of Elizabeth Berkley having crazy dolphin sex in a swimming pool. The tits and Vegas erotic thriller directed by the guy who directed RoboCop, one of the best movies of all time, What Happened?, became an industry joke and buried its lead under a mountain of scorn that she still hasn't been able to dig out from under. Number 2, Warren Beatty, Town and Country. Who's Warren Beatty? The children watching this might be wondering. He's Dick Tracy, mate. He's Clyde from Bonnie and Clyde. He starred in and directed Reds, one of the greatest epic movies of all time, and he's one of the most famous doinker of ladies in history. Why might you have not heard of him though? Well, that's because of a film called Town and Country, a sort of sex comedy about cheating couples and architects and stuff. It made $0 at the box office. It ranked number 5 on the worst box office bombs of the 2000s, and after the crushing reception it received, Warren Beatty didn't direct in or star in another film, not one, for 15 15 years. He's making his return to movies this year, in fact, in November, in a film called Rules Don't Apply. Watch it, because for God's sake, he'll just disappear again. And number 1, Jake Lloyd's Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Could it be anyone else? Lloyd hadn't had much of a career before The Phantom Menace, apart from in Jingle All the Way, obviously. The hype catapulted him into immediate megastardom, but the prequel trilogy's representation of Darth Vader has been retrospectively mauled, with Lloyd being its biggest victim. The problems with Anakin that Christian had to deal with, they basically started here. Look, Lloyd wasn't superb, but he still didn't deserve the extreme fanboy backlash and bullying at school he suffered, which ultimately made him decide to quit acting in 2001. George Lucas, you have a lot to answer for. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Tell us about it in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter here. I'm Adam from Whatculture.com, and I'll see you soon.